Inning.
Kind of choppy for me.
Welcome to a special members-only edition of the Garnet and Old Show, Vince. I'm at home. Vince, where are you?
I am in Michigan, actually. I had to move, Ryan, because I was under an awning that I think was taking away the interwebs from me. But I am in Michigan, just south of Detroit. I'm just going to sit here on this hammock, make it a little. I'll have to hold my phone, but that's not too bad.
Yeah, and it will be being that this is a special members-only show, and thank you all for being a member. If you're watching this, it's because you support Garnet and Old by being a member on our channel, so we thank you for that. But being that you were in Michigan today, Vince, I wanted to do a topic on sort of a what if.
I'm in Big Ten country, brother.
Big Ten country, and so I really wanted to say, okay, Florida State comes out next few weeks, says we're leaving the ACC. Next year, we're going to be in the Big Ten, and we get that announcement. Obviously, that'll be a huge thing. We'll do a bunch of shows on it. But then we have to sit with the reality of, well, okay, we're in the Big Ten now. What does that look like? And what will be crazy, Vince, is I have to keep reminding myself that it's not just the usual suspects that we know and love in the Big Ten, like Ohio State and Michigan State, all that stuff. But now with teams like Oregon and USC and UCLA, it's a whole different landscape. So what would your knee-jerk reaction once the reality hit you that we're in the Big Ten now with all those teams? Like, what are you feeling?
I'm feeling vindicated to a degree, just because I've kind of been pointing toward this for a while now, over a year and a half, maybe 2 years. But then the next thing is like, wow. So Ryan, I don't know if you know this, but I'm originally from New Jersey.
Yeah, I know.
And growing up, my grandfather was a huge Penn State fan. And at the time, Penn State wasn't in the Big Ten, but it's always had that kind of feel, right?
Yeah.
And so, my roots are kind of originally from the North in general, and I've always paid attention to those schools because of that.
Yeah.
Probably more so than a lot of people that, are from the South, or maybe have only lived in the South. They believe that the South is the only place where football is played.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be a little bit of a marriage of my growing up time to my adult time. I would look forward to it. And I think you had a great idea, by the way, to kind of look at this as a what if. What's it going to look like if we get to the point where, what is the schedule going to look like? What would the schedule look like? So
yeah. And what's funny is that we would have at least one odd year because Alabama's already pre-scheduled next season. Our first game of the year next season is Alabama.
Yeah.
Which is going to be crazy, by the way. What happens to the Florida State matchup? Does that continue?
Yeah.
You start thinking a lot of these, who went with us to the Big Ten?
Yeah.
Clemson, Miami. If not Miami, do we still play Miami? So obviously, if you're playing in a big conference as big as the Big Ten, something's got to go as far as scheduling, because you still are going to want to play your one cupcake game a year, your freebie. Maybe you stick with either Florida or Miami if Miami did not come with you. So it's a lot of questions. But Vince, I think the first thing that would come to my mind would be going from a conference where maybe there might be 3 schools where I'd be interested in like going to an away game to see their environment, to
Hmm.
like having like 6 or 7 schools where I'm like, oh, I want to go to Happy Valley. I want to go to the big house. I want to go to the shoe. I want to go to all
You're
these
right.
places. Oregon. I mean, how cool would that be going to Florida State, Oregon? All right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot
Yeah,
of
for sure.
environments that would immediately fill me with like, oh man, I can't wait. Whether it be we go there or we watch it on TV to see Florida State in these new stadiums that we've never played in before.
Right. Yeah, and those stadiums are Big Ten stadiums. I know that sounds very, of course they are, but you know, you can say Michigan State hasn't been that great, right? And they haven't been recently. But what a great fan base, right? What a
Yeah.
great environment. What a great, traditional Big Ten environment to go and experience.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have your smaller venues as well, but even even Purdue, right? Purdue isn't a great team.
Yeah.
Don't have a lot of tradition, but as a Big Ten tradition, they are, right?
Yeah.
And so being able to experience those things, and I think some of those places, Ryan, I think once you go to them once or twice, maybe you're like, yeah, I don't need to really go back there again. But it's
Yeah.
all brand new. It would be all brand new.
Yeah. Even a school like Iowa. Yeah, that'd be
Yeah,
cool to go to.
and they've been pretty
Indiana,
decent. Hmm.
like just these random. And what will be weird is Vince, the home slate for us. It'll feel like a lot like bowl games almost to us, like throughout the season. At first, you eventually,
Hmm.
you fast forward 5 years down the line, you're used to playing these teams, and it's a normal thing. But the
Right,
first 2 years when that rotation is happening on who you're playing at home in Doak, I mean, you're gonna be playing what you feel like are bowl teams.
right. If right, because you're gonna have uniforms and helmets in your stadium that have never been here, and they're not going to be, Savannah State, right?
Yeah,
It's
uh,
going to be Michigan State.
yeah.
It's going to be Penn State. It's going to be Oregon, right? Those are pretty big deals.
Here's what I also want you to consider, Vince. If 2025 is our first year in the Big Ten, we will have a Big Ten schedule and Alabama. That's going to be a toughie of a year.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, you don't know how that thing shakes out sometimes, right? When they're
You would
trying
assume
to,
that first game is in lockdown and contract.
I mean, maybe,
I mean, because
maybe.
that's
I
that's
mean,
the Chick-fil-A game.
oh, it is. It is
Yeah,
not just a.
yeah, we're playing them in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. That's a
Okay, it's not. Yeah, okay, you're right. You're right. So that one's probably locked in. You're probably not going to get out of that one.
which will be weird because it's almost like a hey SEC, we're over here now. You know
Big Ten versus SEC
what a crazy
uh,
matchup that would be.
matchup, right? In Atlanta.
So I thought it would be fun, Vince. I pulled up Ohio State's schedule for this year.
Hmm.
I'm gonna not mention the non big. I'm not gonna mention the non Big Ten teams, but just going down and like picture in your head, this is Florida State's schedule, but add Ohio State and Alabama potentially.
Sure. And also, when you're doing that, think of this in terms of, you're not going to mention the non-Big Ten teams, but you should consider them this, the same kind of venue. Like, for example, I think the first couple of games are home games, right? And so whether it's Akron or whoever those teams are, it would be comparable, you know, weakling teams, right?
Yeah, Western Michigan.
Right. So
Yeah,
imagine those teams coming to Florida in August and September.
yeah, that would be a sellout crowd, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But then I'm just gonna rattle them off. I don't want to do like a wins and losses thing because I think this is more about the feeling of like we wake up and our schedule post kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Michigan State, Iowa, Oregon, Nebraska, Penn State, Purdue, Northwestern, Indiana, Michigan. Alabama. How would that feel to you, Vince?
I mean, that's a lot better than what we got going on. I
Yeah.
mean, for sure. And again, after, like you said, after the first 3 or 4 years, maybe the kind of newness of it wears off. But at least for the first couple years, man, until that first rotation goes through, or the second rotation of it all, there's going to be a lot of excitement about these teams coming in. So, if you look at that schedule, and I looked at it when you said this was the idea, I looked at it and is it Oregon? Like there's an away game to Oregon
Mhm.
in November, right?
Yeah, October, and then a home game against Nebraska.
Right.
And
So,
yeah,
I
and
started
then you got
looking
to
up.
consider
I, s-
weather.
I started looking up the weather. Like, what is the average temperature in Oregon in November or October? Right. It's beautiful. It's beautiful weather. So it's not extreme yet. So that's great. When you contrast that with any of these Big Ten teams coming to Florida in late August or to mid-September, that is extreme. That's the extreme part of the summer.
Mm-hmm.
So I think really Florida State kind of lucks out in a way because you haven't hit extreme winter.
Yeah.
When there's going to be games played. Now, the further you get into the playoff, obviously, if it's the first round, you may have to do that. But
Yeah, I mean, if you were to use this schedule that we're looking at as a template, I mean, you would be playing Michigan November 30th. You could see some snow.
you could. Average temperature, I think it's probably like 58 to 60 high, 28 to 35 low.
Yeah. Now we have played in that. We played Notre Dame.
Sure.
And if you're asking me, if I was a player, Vince, I would much rather play in cold than heat any day.
Yeah.
It's different. It might sting a little bit when you get hit, but just the exhaustion level is more intense because you're losing fluids when it's very hot out.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to know. I mean, our guys are conditioned in the heat, so that may just be natural for them. So, but the game is 4 hours long, right? So it's not like you're spending weeks in the frigid cold, right? You've got to be prepped. You've got to have all the right gear. And so imagine this. Imagine the equipment team. What are they going to have to do differently?
Yeah,
right.
They don't have any of that equipment
to get ready for playing maybe not just 1 or 2 games possibly.
Yeah.
In the North, but playing 4 or 5 games.
Yeah, you're talking about long sleeves, the little hand warmers that are attached to the jersey,
Mm-hmm.
the warming fans that are on the sidelines that we're used to just having the cooling ones,
right?
But the warming ones. But then you're considering just the, I guess the preparatory work is going to look completely different. What I like, Vince, is if I was looking at this last year, and this was our schedule last year, I would be a little worried because I'm like, man, that's a hell of a schedule to try to make a top 4 playoff seed. But with these guaranteed 3-team buy-ins for the playoff for the Big Ten, the top 3 teams in the Big Ten are going to get a spot in the playoff every year.
Mm-hmm.
And being 2 super leagues, you'll probably get 1 or 2 of either in more SEC or Big Ten teams. So
right.
Normally you'd be really worried, like, oh man, how are we going to go undefeated in that? But you're not. You're going to be looking like an excellent season in these big when they finally make the split and all these teams end up where they end up. You're going to end up where an undefeated season is more like a 10-2 season.
Yeah, and so all the trolls that are out there talking about Florida State thinks that they're going to go into the Big Ten or the SEC and they're going to win every game. No one's ever said that. No one's ever said that. And the fact of the matter is the landscape's changed, and so you can have a game or 2 or 3 even if you're from one of the 2 Power 2 leagues, maybe you slip up 3 times, but the main thing is to get into the playoff, and then who knows what can happen from there. So anybody that's, saying those kind of things like, Florida State just thinks they're going to go. No one thinks that. No one thinks that.
And what's fun is because Fox and ESPN are going to have this competition on who has what. You're going to have in the playoff, and I know that they're going to do this in the first rounds. Big Ten team one plays SEC team one. Like
Right.
you're gonna have these kind of fun matchups in the first couple rounds because it brings in the eyeballs. And now in the wild card weekend and in the secondary round, you play at the home stadiums of whoever was highest seeded, much like a NFL game.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think that's how it should have always been in the playoff. I thought the the semifinals in the playoff should have always been whoever has the highest ranking in the matchup should get home field advantage, just because it's more fun. Like I don't want to go to
play for,
I don't want to go to Mercedes-Benz Stadium or the Superdome for the 1,000th time. No, hey man, Oregon's in. Okay, we're playing in Oregon. Like that's awesome. Like
Yeah, and the schools are putting in all this money in the facilities, right?
yeah,
And the towns that support these teams, throughout the years, throw a bone at them every now and then.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy that you pull all of that revenue and all of that marketing and all of that prestige away from these towns, these college towns, to put them in some sterile pro environment, so getting the first rounds in the home stadiums is that's one of the best things about this,
Yeah. It's funny, Vince, and this is the last thing I'll say about the playoffs specifically, is I actually think we're going to see a stabilizing effect in the coaching ranks because of the 12-team playoff. Before, if you weren't competing to win a national championship, was hey, you need to make the playoffs, right? And if you didn't, and you were at a big school, people are going to raise their eyes after a few years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, much like the NFL, you could have the perpetual team that sneaks into the playoff every year, and the coach doesn't get fired when he normally would have after a few years of being ranked 12.
Right.
It happens in the NFL a lot. You'll have coaches that never win the big one, never win the they always make it, but they never win in the playoffs. You're going to have, I think, some stabilizing forces in the coaching ranks, at least in the top schools, because the bar of success will be make the playoffs at first.
Yes, and then if someone, is perpetually making the playoff and never getting past the first round, 7, 8 years in a row, then people start, talking about that, right? So, no, I hadn't really thought about that, but the success has been making the playoff, right?
Yeah.
For the major teams, but the playoff has been limited because there's only been 4 spots.
Yeah.
So you're going to have a lot more happy fans, right? You're going to have a lot more happy fandoms and, to just make the playoff for a while.
Yeah. And
for
less opt-outs too. People playing in the play, like you're gonna have less players opting out of the bowl games because 12 teams now make it in.
Yeah. And then we'll see what happens with, the leagues that aren't, that are the second tier leagues, like the Big 12 and the SEC or the ACC. Eventually, do they just, say, forget about it, we're done with this, we're never going to get a fair shake, and do something different, man? Because, I mean, eventually, I think they're going to squeeze out those other leagues because the dollars are going to be too high, and in their mind, as much of a clown as Sankey is in a way, why should he share that money?
Yeah, that's true.
Why should he share that money? And from this side, we're saying, well, how dare you think you're better than everyone else, and everything else is Sesame Street, which is why we want to get out.
All right, final question before we wrap up, Vince. I'm going to ask you, what is the number one matchup that annually, if we were in the Big Ten, you'd be looking forward to a new matchup that we haven't, had before, a new conference, both them coming here and us going away. It can be the same team coming here and the same team going away, or it can be two different teams. But give me the number one matchups, or you're looking forward to.
Yeah, I mean, if it is going to be the Big Ten, I think just from the history of the two schools, I would love to see Florida State and Penn State become that rivalry.
Yeah.
Because if Michigan has Ohio State, right? Oregon is by nature going to have Washington, right? Because they're coming in at the same time, all that kind of stuff. So they already have that natural thing. Michigan's got Michigan State as well, and I just, Penn State, while they can say they've been in the Big Ten for quite a while, but they don't really have like their go-to natural rivalry.
Yeah.
But because of Bobby Bowden and Joe Paterno, and me personally, just for my own personal thing, because of where I grew up, I would love to see Florida State, Penn State become like an annual thing.
Yeah, that's a great pick. I can't wait. I would love to go to Happy Valley, the Wideout, and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
I would say my pick, and I'm going to go completely new for both of us. I'm going to say USC.
Yeah.
So the reason I say USC is because it's a team we never really. I mean, think about it. Have we ever played USC?
Yeah, we played them actually twice. We played them once there and once in Doak Campbell.
How long ago?
Oh man,
long time ago.
Late '90s, early 2000s, maybe.
So very rare though. If there's only two matchups, then that's
as far
rare.
as I can remember, yeah.
And it would not suck going to visit Southern California any time of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be a fun trip, right?
Oh yeah, and I don't know if you would do it every year that you would, but it would definitely be fun to do. I've never been there. I mean, I've been to California, but I've never obviously been to a game there. Happy Valley, never been to a game there. So the possibilities, Ryan, are exciting, if nothing else. And I know you're super excited to go to Northwestern.
Oh yeah, they're the Wake Forest of
they're putting a lot of money into their new stuff, though.
Yeah, no, isn't
it's amazing what money can do.
It would be fun, regardless of all the root rah rah zimbu babu lately. It would also be fun to go visit like a Colorado, because Colorado is beautiful. That would be a fun trip. I've been to the Rockies; it's beautiful out there, and I wouldn't hate going back, because that stadium, you can say what you want, but the overlook, like looking from the stadium to the mountains and everything, it's like nothing else.
You better bring your Louis Vuitton.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and all my toes. But Vince,
you got me on that one.
Vince, I appreciate your willingness to do the members only show. We wanted to put something out there for our members, just a fun little banter, because I really think the landscape's going to shift in the next month.
The landscape behind me's been shifting.
Yeah, I think where Vince is standing right now, we could be nearby in 2 years, which is wild to think about, playing a game in Michigan.
Yep, absolutely. I think it's going to happen, Ryan. We still, by the way, we are still anticipating word in the next 3 to 4 weeks, I would say, Ryan, right?
Yeah.
If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, but I'm still pretty high on that. And just to remind people, and this is the members only show, so you guys probably already in tune with all this, but we're not anticipating all the answers to come within a singular announcement.
Yeah.
The main thing is to basically state we're done here. So
now, Vince, tell the people, will you be here for the normally scheduled Thursday Gar and Ole show?
I may have to do it from the airport. But as we can see, Ryan, you can pretty much do a YouTube show from anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Do it from the airport, and maybe someone will like walk behind you, like just a random like Greg Sankey or something. I don't know.
Right. I want someone to be on the plane and say, "I'm not real."
Yeah, or track your flight and say confirmed FSU to the Big Ten. Here's the
Oh,
flight
you can track
details.
my flight. That's right.
Yeah,
You can track my flight, and you can start putting up some rumors about going to see all these Big Ten venues.
absolutely. Well, Vince, it's been a pleasure. I hope you have a good week off work. I know hard-earned time off for you, and I will see you from wherever you are this Thursday live 7 o'clock. As always for the Garden Old Show, guys. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for being a member and supporting our channel. And as always, screw ESPN eternally. No inside info, no contacts, no problem. And Vince, send
Chiefs all the damn time.
and
Send them
go
to
Noles.
Michigan.
And as always, go Noles.
Go Noles.